Hello, you're joining me in the garden today for a closer look at this absolutely marvellous, brand new for 2020, Deluxe 1:6 scale Protoceratops figure from CollectA. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to YouTube user Gareth Wong for requesting this review. I also want to say a big thank you, as ever, to Everything Dinosaur for processing and dispatching my order so efficiently. Great work. This is a figure I was greatly anticipating because, of course, cleverly, CollectA have made it in scale with the beasts of the Mesozoic velociraptors. Also, because this has to be everybody's favourite Cretaceous sheep, and it's nice that we're starting to get some phenomenal figures of it coming through. And also because CollectA have improved so much over recent years, and you know that when you get the figure, it is going to look exactly like the promotional images. So, one of the improvements they've made is towards anatomical accuracy. So you'll see the proportions of this figure are spot on to what we know about Protoceratops. They've obviously done their research, and also they've improved their textures and their sculpting, and they've also kept the cost of their figures very, very reasonable indeed. This figure is under £20 at Everything Dinosaur, and for a figure of this size and quality, it's a no-brainer to go for it. So as you can see, it's in a very dynamic pose. This could be an aggressive pose, or it could be a feeding pose. You have options here. Let's bring it up and have a closer look at the head. So as you can see, they've gone for an all-over scaly skin texture on the face. And one of the things I also love about CollectA dinosaurs is the individuality of the scaling detail. There's a lot of dinosaur figures have got very cut and paste scales all over, and it really detracts from the sculpt and doesn't look very realistic. But what you've got here is more rugose, pebbly scales across the cheekbones, where the dinosaur take more punishment in life, and they graduate to smaller scales at the extremities, and it's a very, very natural look. As you can see, the eye is painted very, very neatly in a very high, shiny black gloss, which really makes it pop and shine and gives the figure an element of life. And there's loads of little details, really, really abundant detail around the eye sockets as well, little wrinkles and scales. You can see they put a little jugal horn on the jugal, which we don't know whether or not Protoceratops had that, but it's a nice touch. However, they haven't put any ecoccipitals around the rim of the frill, instead choosing to make the skin very tough and rugose in these areas, which is a nice touch, and it's not something I've seen on a ceratopsian figure before. But as ceratopsians seem to have fairly tough skin, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. If you look at the shape of the skull, you can see it's got this raised ridge, and some Protoceratops specimens have this and some don't. So there's a suggestion that could either be a sexually dimorphic feature, or it could be simply down to the maturity of the individual. Again, that gives you options. As you can see, like a lot of recent CollectA dinosaurs, it does have an articulated jaw. Now, articulated jaws in CollectA dinosaurs are a bit hit and miss. In this case, it really isn't too bad. As you can see, they don't fully mesh together. That's not really an issue. There's a bit of a seam along the cheek, and that does look a lot worse on camera than it does in life. It really doesn't detract from the figure too much in the hand. As you can also see, there's a greater rugosity of scale detail along the underside of the jaw, which again, you see quite commonly in modern reptiles, and again, just goes to show you how much thought they've put into designing this figure. I thought the nostril might be a little bit high up, but of course the beak would be extended by keratin. It might simply be the shape of the beak that they've chosen here, and as you can see, it is a little bit crescent shaped. It's perhaps a little bit emphasised the hook of the beak compared to what it would be in life, but it's not something I'm going to complain about. You've got these characteristic little double fangs in the front of the jaws, and inside the mouth as well, you've got a nicely painted tongue. There's very little overspill. It's generally very, very neat, and the teeth are painted in these jaws also. The inside of the cheeks aren't painted, they're left the base colour of the plastic. It does not detract from the figure at all. It's generally a very, very neat paint scheme. And getting onto this paint scheme, this is something that you will see very commonly in CollectA dinosaurs, this base brown with the brown spots on the top. In this case, it works very well with Protoceratops being a desert animal. And I don't mind it at all, because if they're going to reuse the same paint schemes, it helps to keep the costs down, and that's better for us collectors. So hats off to them for that. If I turn them around, you can see from the front that this is a very mean looking Protoceratops. If you're one of those velociraptors behind, you'd probably think twice about messing with this one. It really does look like it means business. If I just rotate around to the other side, you can see the overall form of the body. There is absolutely no shrink wrapping here at all. CollectA seem to be doing better contouring than any other company in some of their figures as of late, and that includes the higher end companies as well, and I'll show you why. I mean, yes, you do get the wrinkles and folds, behind the neck and around the back of the arms and in the elbows, etc. What I mean by the contouring is there's no over musculature, and what I also mean is there's no shrink wrapping, but there's also a more realistic graduation between the hard tissues underlying and the soft tissues. So if you look at the gut here, you'll see the overall contours of the ribs without there being any individual ribs visible, and then a slight dip, and then it bulges out to this lovely big rounded gut, which is a very realistic touch, and again shows how much attention CollectA are paying when they're making these figures. So you can see the overall skin texture is somewhat reminiscent of a Komodo dragon. It's very, very pebbly, and they've got little osteoderms in here as well to help protect it from that feisty little predator in its Gobi Desert environment. If I roll it over as well, you'll also notice apart from the bulk of the gut, it's also got the cloacal vent picked out in a darker colour to leave you in absolutely no doubt as to what it actually is. And you also see the thickness of the base of the tail and the overall thickness of the figure as well. CollectA figures can be a little bit narrow here, not a bit of it with this one. It's beautifully done. They've decided to put the filaments along the spine of the tail. A lot of ornithischians did seem to have interesting integumental structures, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. CollectA are very fond of putting structures like this on the ceratopsians. It doesn't look too bad. From the back again, you can see it's a really, really nice form to the figure. Those great long limbs. And if I just pop them back down here, nice having his lunch with those raptors in the background. I'm in Protoceratops heaven at the minute. I can't wait for the beasts of the Mesozoic one to turn up and keep this little Cretaceous sheep company. There is of course also the wonderful wild past Protoceratops out, and there are also Kyoto Protoceratopses out, as well as other ones, older figures. But overall, if you're going to pick up a Protoceratops figure, there are now some really, really excellent modern choices, and for the price of it, this is definitely one of them, and I highly recommend that you pick it up. So I hope you've enjoyed having a closer look at it with me, and I hope you all stay very safe and well, and I hope to see you in the next video.